Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Desiree, and on my channel we talk about all things wellness. If you have watched some of my previous videos, you saw my weight loss transformation video and perhaps some of my others, such as why I'm not keto, which really should have been called why I'm not comfortable calling myself keto, because I do a lot of keto stuff. The 12 things that held me back, and most recently just put out my Thanksgiving video. If you haven't already liked and subscribed, do that and turn on the notifications. That way you get notified every time I put out a new video. Today is a different day. Usually I try to have some sense of humor, something fun in my videos, but today's a different talk. Today, I'm going to be diving into something that is more personal, and I hope that others can relate to it. It's something that I've struggled with for quite a while, and I've tried to record this video a few times, and I finally decided today was the day. It's the first day of December, and it's snowing out, and it's beautiful, and today is the day to wash clean some old wounds. And I'm going to dive in deeper, and I'm going to invite you to join me as I discuss some of the things that I've gone through during my weight loss transformation and my continual journey and my healing process. So if you're interested, keep on watching. All right, we're just going to dive right in. We're going to do the uncomfortable thing. We're going to say the things. And perhaps there's some others out there that can relate with some of the things that I'm going through and have gone through for years. I thought a lot about what I wanted to share with all of you. And I felt that in order to be truly authentic, I needed to share and be honest. I needed to identify old patterns of behavior. And so I started doing some research, and I spoke in probably a previous video that I did a little journaling. I wrote affirmations to myself. I really tried to get into a place where I got to know myself better. I wanted to take time to think about some of the choices I made in my past and think about what led me to those choices. I did some reading, and if you guys have not read any books by this incredible author, I really recommend it. Geneen Roth. She has some incredible books out there. Right now, I'm reading The Messy, Magnificent Life, a field guide to mind, body, and soul. Beautiful book. And the other one, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about today, When Food is Love. I will go ahead and put the links down below in the description. If you have not read anything by Geneen Roth, you are missing out. Her books are honest and raw and vulnerable, and they really just spoke to my heart. And I'm going to admit that, especially reading this book, When Food is Love, I have had to sit down, read some, and walk away. It was like peeling back scabs that were almost ready to fall off, but not completely, and you bleed just a little bit. That's how it felt emotionally, but I knew that the work was necessary, and I knew that I was on the right path, and I needed to continue. So if you have not read these books, do yourself a favor and do that. Some of the things that she talks about in this book were things that I related to so much, and it felt like this book was being written about me. And I think that some of the issues I know that a lot of my issues that I had stemmed from when I was a child. So I mentioned in my weight loss transformation video that I did not start out overweight. My weight started to pile on when I was around the age of 4 or so. My parents were divorced sometime between the time I was 2.5 to 3 years old. And that did a lot to me, I'm sure, emotionally, and I'm not alone in that. Many children grow up in homes where their parents are no longer married. And so I didn't really know how to cope with certain emotions. And at the time when my parents got divorced, I spent a tremendous amount of time with my grandmother. My mother was trying to figure out how to raise a child on her own. And she worked quite a bit, and she needed to do what she needed to do. And my grandmother, as amazing as she was also very overweight. And she loved me in the only way that she knew how, and that was to feed me. So early on, I learned that food was love. Now, here in the South, I'm not from the South, but here in the South, people always talk about how food is love. Let me tell y'all, food is love, but it shouldn't be the only form of love. It took me a really long time to realize that my relationship and my emotional connection to food was what was holding me back. And so I thought about my relationship with my grandmother and my relationship with my mother and the relationship I had with other people at different parts of my life. And what I realized with reading this book and doing some of the work on my own was that over the years, I never really learned the difference between food and love. For me, it was the same thing. And I didn't understand the difference between food and love and love and love. And I don't really think I gravitated or really understood the concept of true unconditional love until I met my husband. And even it took years into that marriage for me to really get it. And so I'm at a place now where I'm coming up with all these new feelings, and my children are 10 and they are learning and growing, and they're asking questions, and it's making me feel really big feelings about the time that I was that age. And I was a very awkward child. I was very heavy set. I was not athletic. Unfortunately, no athletic genes in this girl. And I was very complacent. I didn't exercise. The only thing I was ever good at was singing. And so that was the only thing I gravitated to when I was younger. As I got older, there were certain patterns of behavior that I recognized. Geneen talks about in this book a memory that she has, and it was something that it affected me very deeply. She has this memory that she shares of walking from an empty room to an empty room to an empty room, and then ending up at the refrigerator. And then walking around the house again and going from empty room to empty room because she was alone a lot. And I grew up as an only child. I didn't find out that I had sisters until I was 15 years old. So, and that was through my biological father. So I grew up as an only child, and my mother hustled, she worked, and she provided. But I was alone a lot, and I was alone to try to figure out my own feelings. And there was just emptiness. So I would walk from empty room to empty room to empty room until I ended up at the refrigerator, decided there wasn't anything in there that I wanted. And then I'd walk around the empty house again from room to room and end up at the pantry, and eventually end up with a box of Little Debbie's and a Coca-Cola, and I would sit on the floor and I would consume the entire box. And some might find that that was funny, but it wasn't. What that taught me at a very young age was that food was my comforter. Food was my constant. Food would never abandon me. Food would never leave me alone, and food would always make me feel better. But then I got to a place where food was no longer fulfilling the need that I have. I had a friend a while ago tell me that we are constantly chasing a feeling with a certain form. And I just did not get at that point how true that statement was until I started doing more work. And then I realized there was so much truth to that. For me, the food wound up not being the end. Then it became putting all of my emotions into boys. I was a teenager, and so I wanted to be loved. I didn't feel like I knew what love was. And then when I got older and putting my emotions into men that weren't giving me the love that I felt that I needed back, then it went into alcohol. And when alcohol didn't do it for me, then it was drugs. And I used, and there was a cycle. I was unhappy and I was chasing a feeling with a form, and I used the form, and then I was happy for a moment, and then it was fleeting. And then I saw it disappearing from me and I wanted it back. And so what I would do is I would use again. And then I would feel empty, and then I would use again. And it got to a place where I was like, this is enough. And at the same time, I still had all of my other addictions. I was still addicted to food. I was still addicted to unhealthy men and unhealthy relationships. I had developed a codependent pattern of behavior. The men that I would become involved with needed to be saved. Anything you can think of. I was that girl that went after the man that was not right for her. So all of these unhealthy patterns needed to come to an end. I got to a place where I realized that using food and having unhealthy relationships and using drugs and alcohol and having excessive weight gain up and down for years, they were not the problem. They were the symptom. And I had to peel back layers to figure out what were my root issues for me as an individual. And there may be people out there that can relate to this. But as I started to journal and to write down affirmations and try to see myself differently, perhaps the way that others also saw me, I started to realize that I had some deeper issues. And those issues were, I didn't feel like I was good enough. I did not think that I was worthy. And I did not feel that I was valuable. And that was a really difficult place to be in my own healing. And to be truthful, I'm still trying to do work around that. So in order to break these patterns of behavior, I had to be really honest with myself, and I had to figure out what were my fears, because we all have fears, and that fuels our need to chase a feeling with the unhealthiest form that we can think of. And I realized that I had a few fears. Fear number one, people would think that I was a fraud. So we have this place inside of us that tells us we're not who we pretend to be, because there's always someone better. They can do it better. They can say it better. They are better. And we feel like we're not valuable unless we're doing for someone else, even if it hurts us, because they'll never leave us. They won't abandon us if we give them everything. And it's a really unhealthy place to be. Fear number two, abandonment. Some of us are terrified of the idea of being alone. And we develop codependent patterns of behavior because we're afraid people are going to walk out of our lives. It could be because I spent a lot of my youth alone. My mother had to work long hours just to provide for us. It could be because I grew up without a father. It could be because I had a very difficult time nurturing relationships when I was younger, and I didn't know how to make people stay for the right reasons. So I was constantly afraid that people would walk out of my life. Developing codependent patterns of behavior with unhealthy people is incredibly destructive. And then it adds in to the fuel of using food for connection and intimacy. And intimacy can mean a lot of things. It's not just a sexual connection. Intimacy is being connected to other people. And abandonment was definitely something that I was terrified of. Fear number three. And for me, this might have been, and it probably still is, my greatest fear. Feeling vulnerable. I do not like to feel vulnerable in front of other people. I'm afraid of feeling exposed. I'm afraid of losing control of my emotions. I'm afraid of being judged by others because of my emotions. Whenever I get to a place where I start to feel very vulnerable, I tend to make very poor choices, or at least I did in the past. And I'm at a place now where I can be very open and honest and recognize the fact that I have these issues, and I'm not alone in that. There are other people out there that struggle with the same exact thing. And where I'm at now is trying to figure out my place in all of it and how to identify it and then create a new story, create a new way of living. I don't have to live in fear. You don't have to live in fear. No one has to live in fear. Fear is a liar. And when we get to a place where we have decided that we have had enough of the fear, then we will start making positive change in our own lives. And then it will be a trickle effect. Positive things will happen if we decide that we're going to take control over our own lives and our own emotions and empower ourselves to say, yes, I made mistakes in the past and I am ready for a new life, and I am ready to love myself. I am ready to get to a place, no matter what the addiction is. Could be food, it could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be men. For me, it was everything, all the above. And now I'm at a place where I have decided I want to create a new story. I want to set a better example for my children. I am trying everything I can to allow myself to be in a place of vulnerability and to allow the people in my circle, the ones that love me, honestly and truly, without expecting anything in return, which is unconditional love. I'm allowing them to encourage me to branch out and heal those deeper layers that were so painful before. So what does that mean for myself and possibly for others going forward? It means that I need to get to a place, and I'm getting closer to a place where I am shaping my own life. And that means several things. It means that I'm going to start having my own expectations rather than allowing the expectations of others to shape who I become. I am going to see more value in myself and feel safe to communicate my own needs, because my needs, my dreams, my aspirations are absolutely important. I need to show up for myself without sacrificing my own values and principles. It means nurturing my body, making myself a priority, setting goals for myself that are difficult and challenging but attainable, and not setting expectations that are unrealistic, because then that's going to put me back into a pattern of disappointment, and I can't do that to myself. That means that I have to trust. I have to allow myself to get into a place of vulnerability and be comfortable with it, sit in it, and be okay with what comes of it. I need to get to a place where I forgive myself for the mistakes I made of my past, because the little girl that I was is gone, and I am nurturing and loving a new woman in her place, being okay with wanting more. And usually, and I always tell my children that gratitude is making what we have enough, and that is absolutely true. And there are other things, though, that I want for my life and things that I want for their lives. And I know that I am valuable and I am worthy of the dreams that I have. And I'm going to keep pushing for them. That I'm going to have the courage to pursue those dreams without fear of failure. And I used to always believe that failure meant that I was not valuable. And failure, I realize now, is just a wonderful teacher. And I'm grateful now for the failures that I had. What I realize now, where I'm at in my journey, is that what served me as a child before no longer serves me as an adult now. And food can be love. We show our family love, but I love to cook for people. It's how I show them love. Food should never be a replacement for the connection that I have with others and my children and my husband and myself. So if you've made it to the very end of this video, I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you for being part of my journey. I am not anywhere near done. I have so much more work to do. I have things to say. I have things to share. And I'm so grateful that I'm in a place where I get to share them with you, for anybody who is watching. And if I can leave you with anything, please just know that you are loved, you are supported, and you have all of the power in the world to make a change if that's what you feel you need to do. And that's where I'm at, and that's where I'm going to continue to stay. I'm going to continue to work and dive deeper and pull back these layers. And if that means I bleed a little bit, I'm ready to bleed. And if you need that encouragement, feel safe to communicate your needs to the people that love you and support you. And if you don't feel that you are in the right environment, then you need to change your environment, and you need to go ahead and set some healthy boundaries with people in your life. And if that means distancing yourself from people who do not support your healthy dreams and aspirations, then that's what you need to do, because you are valuable. Thanks again so much, guys, for watching my video and for all of your support. I'm going to be putting out more videos. If you have anything that you want to hear about, put it in the comments below. I would absolutely love to hear from y'all. Again, it was an absolutely gorgeous day. It snowed. It was the first day of December. I'm feeling so incredibly blessed, and I'm blessed for you, having you join me on my channel. As I always say, go out into the world, put joy out there, and do you. Bye.